Hey guys, welcome. I'm Catherine and this is Little Bits of Heaven Homestead. So I'm out scooping poop. It's probably one of my biggest chores here on the homestead, in all honesty. It's not one I necessarily dread because I've shared with you guys that I have a use and need for all of the manure that I collect. So I actually look at it as one of our precious resources, but it also gives me an opportunity to be side by side with a lot of my animals for longer periods of time that I might otherwise if I weren't out here being intentional about the efforts that I'm putting into not only spending time with my animals, but being a part of the homestead and being active on it. So there's lots of life that gets in the way and lots of things that draw me away from the animals and become a higher priority. So by being here in the yard scooping poop, it gives me an opportunity to observe. So you guys can see this is my La Mancha back here. Her name is Alice, and she was given to me in September. And she's got babies on her and they're kind of attacking her right now. So she just had 3 kids this past week. She came to me in milk and she is a huge producer. So let's see if I can see any of her kids. So there's one right there. So, and I'm not sure, I think the other 2 are back there with her. Yeah, there's one there. So she had a little girl with little La Mancha ears, and then I'm still trying to decide. I haven't really checked this one out. I think that one's a girl too, and then she had a little boy. So, but going to watching animal behavior, she came to us in September in milk, and she's a huge producer, like 2 gallons a day. Huge producer. I'm pretty sure that she's a cow in a former life. But I was intentionally trying to dry her up because partly because of her own health and needs, because she came to us not in great condition. And that was part of why we ended up with her. Was her former owner loved her and wanted her to go to some place that was meeting her needs. And my friend who had her, she was unable to keep up with her milk production once she sold the kids that were on her. So we ended up with her because not that I have more time or energy, but just because that was a project I was willing to take on. But when she came to us, one of our bucks, he escaped his pen, probably because there was a new lady on the block. And then my primary buck, who I not so lovingly refer to as Satan, his real name is Samson, he busted out because he was jealous or noticed competition or for whatever reason. And so it's kind of funny's not the word, but it's interesting to watch animal behavior, and there are some constants that apply not only to animals but can carry through to also human behavior. So there was this whole competition thing and strutting and one buck competing to be the bigger, baddest buck and win over her love. I'm not sure who won, but somebody obviously did, because 5 months later we have babies. So that was in November, and I made a mental note thinking, okay, we're most likely going to have kids 5 months from now. As we didn't intentionally plan it, I wasn't going to breed her this past year, but sometimes life has plans of its own. So I've been watching her. I don't do blood tests on my goats to test for pregnancy. I've been debating with her, and I kind of do this with all my goats, like, are they just chubby? Are they actually pregnant? And so I've been watching her hind end, watching for sign, and with her, because she's a heavy milk producer, I noticed that her bag started growing. And they typically do that just a handful of days. The milk bag itself, the udder, will start filling in just a handful of days before the goat kids. And their vaginal ligaments, you can squeeze them, and they feel really tight and hard right at the base of the tail. So what you do is you wrap your fingers around the base of the tail and squeeze, and those ligaments, as they get ready to kid, will get looser and looser to the point where your fingers can almost touch, where prior to that you're squeezing at the base of the tail there. So I was watching her and noticed sign, and so knowing that we were probably getting close to kidding, I went ahead and put her in. We've got this independent pen. I showed it to you guys last time when we had kids. So this used to be our pig pen, but it's got a little yard that's fenced in with pallets. So this has become our dedicated kidding pen. We also have a new goat, PETA. I've shared with you guys some of our PETA adventures. She is definitely an adventure, is putting it mildly. She keeps us on our toes. But when she came to us and I I don't want to say mistakenly because I'm convinced that she's supposed to be here. But when I bought her, her previous owner told me that she may potentially be bred, and that if she was bred, that she would kid in April sometime, and she did not kid in April. But I'm watching her, and I'm pretty sure that she too is expecting. So we may have more kids here on the homestead here shortly. And if that's the case, I'm keeping a good eye on her, and I may have to swap Alice and PETA because I just have this one kidding pen. So, and does are really territorial, especially does with babies, and so you want to give them their own space if at all possible. They're really, like, she was out in the yard just a little bit ago, and she was really protective of her babies to the point where she was distracted and unable to focus on taking care of her own needs because she was so busy running around trying to keep everybody away from her babies. So just for your mama's peace of mind, and so that they can have some calmness, it's a good idea to go ahead and separate them. So other events we have here at the homestead is I have ducklings hatching in my incubator. I am thrilled about that because the egg that actually hatched was one of my own. I had a friend send me a bunch of Muscovy eggs, and I'm super excited about those. They still have a handful of days. I think they're down to 3 or 4 days before they're due to hatch. But I put a handful of my own eggs in the incubator because I had room, and I have a hatching addiction. And I was pretty convinced that my own eggs were sterile, as I've got Muscovy mixes, and then I've got some mixes that are pecan. And I understand both of those are considered mules and are most likely sterile. I have had some success hatching ducklings in the past years. Last year I had pretty poor hatch rates, and I was convinced it was because of my mule ducks. And so just for giggles, because I'm all about experimenting, and I just love seeing what works and what doesn't work and playing around, and that's half of my fun on the homestead is experimenting. So I love the whole process of it, because some things work, some things don't, and you learn a whole lot through the process. But so I put my own eggs in there. Much to my own surprise, a chicken had laid in my duck eggs, so I ended up with a chick a handful of days ago. And I have a friend who works at the county extension office, and she had requested that I bring some fertile eggs in for their egg to chick program. I want to cite that correctly. And so I took in 3 18 packs of eggs, and they are in the process of incubating them. So last week, I'm obviously having a hard time talking today. I think it's because it's cold and windy, and I've been out here scooping poop with these guys. But so the 4-H program and county extension office is hatching eggs for us, and they had their first batch hatch last week. The second batch is in the process of hatching today, and then our third batch will be next week. So in theory, we should have an abundance of chicks here soon. And I do have one duckling that hatched, and so I'm going to pull it out and put it into a brooder, and it should either join the other ducklings that hatch, or it will be joining the chicks that I pick up from the county extension office. So super excited about that, but I'm really excited about my duckling that hatched because, like I said, I thought my eggs were sterile. So me being me, knowing that I have the potential to go ahead and incubate and have a successful hatch on my ducklings, I went ahead and started collecting more duck eggs. I do have a duck that she's been collecting a clutch on her own, and she kinda sorta is deciding whether she wants to be broody or not, but I've had poor success with broody ducks. I get them all the way through till hatch day, and then they kick out the ducklings and kill them. So my operational policy has just been to take duck eggs and incubate them myself. So that's what I'm probably going to do is once my Muscovy eggs hatch is I'm going to grab these other eggs that my duck is collecting, and I will throw them in the incubator and see. My peafowl have started laying. That's exciting. They're seasonal layers, unlike chickens and ducks, as they tend to lay early spring-ish, I guess early summer, I don't know what you call this season. And then they'll take a bit of a break over the summer and then lay late summer, early fall again. And so I am most likely going to incubate some of those because I don't know if I said this earlier, but I kind of have a hatching addiction. And I have some friends that are interested in some pea chicks. As I don't necessarily want to grow my pea flock. I'm not a huge fan of the peas. They ended up here a lot like a lot of the animals that I end up with, is they just kind of show up and move in and let me know that this is their homestead too, and whether I like it or not. So that's how they ended up here. So I will be incubating their eggs just for fun. I did incubate some last year, and then I went Godzilla on them and killed them right before they were about to hatch. I didn't do it intentionally. I thought the eggs were not developing. I was on my way to visit Julie from Dirt Patch Heaven in Idaho, and I did not want to leave my family with a handful of bad eggs in an incubator for a week. So me and my infinite wisdom took them out of the incubator and left them out on the porch, and my daughter ended up, she likes to do, we call them, not a necropsy, but an egg cropsy. So where you go in and you check and see what the status of whatever it was developing inside the egg. And so she opened them up and then sent me this really sad message saying, oh my goodness, Mom, these things were fully formed and almost about to hatch. So then I felt absolutely terrible, but lesson learned, lesson learned. Oftentimes I learn lessons the hard way, so hopefully if you get anything out of watching my channel is some things not to do. Hopefully I can make some mistakes on your behalf. So, but that is our current status as far as new life on the homestead. I am getting ready to butcher and process the vast majority of my rabbit breeders. They are my biggest meat producer on the homestead, and currently, because I did a poor job, and this is something that take to heart, if you have rabbits, they do best if you keep them breeding. If you stop breeding them and let them only have a litter or two a year, they tend to build up abdominal fat, which will make them either unable to conceive, or if they do conceive, they're not able to carry the litter to term. And so I've had some issues with my breeders. I do have cages full of grow outs, and I do that intentionally so that way if I ever need to replace a breeder, I have one on hand ready to go. And so what I'm going to do, and part of me is the sentimental part, because some of these rabbit breeders are either from my original litter or are my original breeders, and we've been doing this almost 6 years, so they're getting old too. It's a good idea and policy to replace all of your breeders across the board in all livestock to keep them fresh and young, because you're going to have a lot less issues with them. You're going to have less birthing issues, you're going to have less conception issues, but young, I'm not like grossly young, but young, healthy animals tend to do better than older animals, and that's just a good and wise policy to run any homestead, farm, or ranch. So, so that is going to be a little hard, but I'm totally in a mental place to be able to do that, because I'm also all about efficiency and cost. And so if I've got a handful of rabbits that I'm feeding that aren't producing, then all they are is pets. And I made a vow to myself that when we did this, that I was not going to be an animal collector, that everybody who was on our homestead was going to serve a purpose, and if they weren't going to serve a purpose, they were going to feed us. And so in order to stay true to that, that's something that sometimes hard choices need to be made. That's okay. We're all human. It's okay to be emotional about it. It's okay to say that things are hard. In fact, I would question somebody's humanity if you can take things that you have cared for, loved on, bonded with, and not had any emotional pangs about it. I'm not saying that I'm unable to do it, because I absolutely am. They are pets with a purpose, but they will be going into our freezer just because that's the whole point of homesteading, is we're raising food. So Alice here, I love her. So okay, well, that's all I have for this evening, you guys. I am going to link some additional videos, so I will see you on future videos. Thanks for hanging with me, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.